Hi all, let's look at a recent topical game, Carlsen versus Ivanchuk from the Bilbao Masters. Ivanchuk was leading the sort, equalise the score and win the tie breaks. Let's look at one of the key encounters then, with Carlsen as white. So he plays d4, and Vassily plays into like the Nimzo-Indian defence. And knight c3 is played by Magnus, not worried about mainline Nimzo-Indian, the dreaded pin on bishop b4. So bishop b4, and now actually not Rubinstein's method e3 or queen c2, which is very popular, but actually just knight f3. Okay, black's not in a rush to sort of damage white's pawn structure because it is relinquishing the bishop pair. Black actually tries to increase the focus on the e4 square, so b6, so hypermodern stuff, putting the bishop either here and here, but usually, you know, bishop b7, I think this position is very popular, just trying to exert more influence on that central e4 square. Queen c2 and now bishop b7, and now queen c2 has the benefit now that a3 and whites can avoid the doubled pawns, but white loses some time with the queen. After bishop takes c3, queen takes c3. It would seem an attractive idea now for black to put a knight on e4 and reinforce that knight with f5. So what has Magnus got up his sleeve? What new amazing idea here? So knight e4, puts his queen on c2. Now this reinforcement with f5. Now often a player as white who's a bit oblivious to black's plans, if you casually play this position as white and carry on, say with e3, say bishop d3 or bishop e2, later when black castles, this kind of attack, rook f6 to h6, might even be dangerous, or just overprotecting e4 with the knight coming to f6 just to reinforce this knight. So there's a lot of potential counterplay that black has here. Now Magnus actually chose g3, so g3 is significantly different, not moving the e pawn, but instead either going for a fianchetto or something very, very unusual after knight e to f6. And it almost looks like a beginner's move. If you haven't seen this game, can you guess what white played here? If I give you 10 seconds, it's not a normal fianchetto move, bishop g2, that you might expect. So if I give you 10 seconds, guess what Magnus played now? So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, I don't remember seeing this move, bishop h3. I think it might be a product of engine analysis. I've actually got a new Kibitzer now on the team, Houdini 2.0, and the idea of bishop h3 comes up at depth 19 actually. If we go to depth 17, you're watching the idea of bishop h3 here, and there's a very deep tactical logic to it. Look, bishop h3 emerges at depth 19 of 40. So this is the evolution of chess style. We're getting more and more specific to the position. It all depends on the position as the motto here. Why does bishop h3 depend on the position? I'm going to give you some speculations here based on some analysis I've already seen. You'll see in some of these lines, look, the black queen's coming to h5 and the bishop's retreating, and then b5 or d5 is sometimes occurring. Why bishop h3 might not be considered a strong move? First of all, okay, forget the fact that black can double the pawns. Black really doesn't want to give up the light square bishop. He'd be left with light square weaknesses. That's not important. Also, white would then have pressure on the e file, and e4 wouldn't be such a weakness. The f3 pawn might actually be useful on f3. So forget that. The real implication here, which maybe has ruled this move out for most players, is black's usual stereotypical maneuver in this position. That if black castles, there's a tempo gain, because black wants to sometimes play queen e8 to rudely go to the king side with h5, and with control of the centre, this kind of attacking plan is more justified. It's not just going for the king. There's a respect of the centre. There's a respect of preventing white's liberating e4. So this kind of manoeuvre might be justified. But here, if the bishop's on h3, it's an unprotected piece. We're talking about an unprotected piece, so it will actually gain a valuable tempo potentially for accelerating black's attack. So that's why some might consider this a beginner's move on the surface. But it's either genius or the product of engine analysis. In reality, I suspect the product of engine analysis, because the timing of such an attack here really depends. Is the bishop going to have enough time to have an influence on f5 if white is able to play, for example, d5, and f5 is slightly weaker later? And combine the idea of d5 with bishop f4 so that e5 is not possible. Or even temporary pawn sack, which sometimes black plays, would not be possible if the bishop's on f5. So the queen and bishop here are coordinating potentially on f5. That's the key point. Is there enough time for black to exploit this unprotected piece? As I say, it's so dependent on the position. It's either the product of genius on one extreme or a beginner's move on the other. But because we know Carlsen played it, we have to assume it's either genius or deep engine analysis. So actually, so after bishop h3, Ivanchuk did just castle, probably a little bit concerned. So the day before, him and 3 others, by the way, had gone to a restaurant. It's on the ChessBase news article, and they were having some funny fish food. I think little squid or something, little octopus, I don't know, some weird stuff yesterday. But Magnus was busy swatting up for Ivanchuk. I think Magnus has had some embarrassing defeats in the past, so was keen to try and get something from the opening. So he's definitely got this surprise move here, this bishop h3 in. But he missed out on the restaurant. What is that? I'd go for the restaurant myself anyway. Sorry. After castles, black played a5. So why does black play a5? Well, it restricts b4, and b4 might mean bishop b2, which might mean d5 is more effective because you're extending the scope of the bishop. So it's a positional restraining move. Okay, you're weakening b5. Is that exploitable? No, there isn't a knight here to jump into b5, so it's not such a bad concession for b5. Also, you might be threatening to play a4 at some point and seal b3 a little bit more. But there's still this rude plan available with tempo. So I guess, okay, Ivanchuk's first concern was actually b4. Let's actually make sure of that, because I want to go into high precision for this game. If queen e8, is b4 a big deal? Actually, it's not given as a big deal. Okay, second best move b4, just the merge for a bit. But a move like d5 and bishop f4, you see, this is why it's even the stereotypical idea of b4 might be a bit too slow. In this position, it might actually be a stronger idea. Just bishop f4, it's attacking c7. Now, say a move like that, then b4 might be useful there. Okay. So there might be other subtle reasons to prevent b4, not just for the idea of putting the bishop on b2, because c7 also with queen e8, c7's left a little bit loose. Okay, so let's assume for some reason b4 is going to be useful for white. Rook d1. So we've got this idea that white's focal point is f5, and d5 will disrupt black's pawn structure. The queen's got to move away from the d file anyway. d6 will really run into d5 with great pressure on the d file, with black unable to play e5 and f5 being a real target. So queen e8 now is played because it does solve some problems. It seems like a reasonable move. And anyway, d5 in this position always carries with it, you're weakening. If you play d5, you're weakening these two squares. Surely that's another general rule of thumb. You've got to be playing d5 with great care and great precision. But the thing is, the weaknesses of the dark squares, is that significant? Has black got a dark square bishop? No. Are these weaknesses exploitable? Well, maybe with this manoeuvre, surely, you might think. But this dark square bishop is also given extra scope to attack c7. So knight a6, bishop f4, attacking that poor c7 pawn. So this looks like a dangerous innovation so far, because black's moves seem fairly logical, and now perhaps they've been sure he doesn't like his position already. He can't play the natural d6. He can't play this because d takes e6 is on f5, and I doubt there'll be time in this position to play g6. I'm pretty sure if we turn on the bits here. Okay, so bishop h6. Ouch. The pawn's temporarily on e6, but it's doing damage. It's winning the exchange. So this is really an unpleasant position already, it seems. So e takes d5 is played, giving up the f5 pawn. And with that, now white really has access to h7 in some variations, and this is kind of becoming unheard of. This bishop, which is usually parked on g2, having a quiet life, is now having a very aggressive life via this maneuver, attacking a vulnerable h7 spot of black's king position. So this is a radical new idea, basically. D takes c4 is played here now. So d takes c4 is actually extending the scope of the rook on the d file, which is tactically quite significant in this game, because now, believe it or not, Magnus plays another, you would consider just another sort of, on the surface you could say it's like a beginner's move, you know, just moving the knight to g5, just attacking h7. But how does black actually defend h7 here? It's actually, if it's really difficult to defend h7, then it's actually worth playing a direct move like knight g5. You might think, well, surely the knight can be repelled here. What about h6, you might ask. In the game, queen h5 was played, but let's have a look at h6 here. If the move h6 is played, bang, bishop takes d7, and we've uncovered an attack on h7. So if the knight plays there, then queen h7 is mate. Ouch. So h6 is not possible, which makes, you know, knight g5. How does black react? White, according to Houdini 2.0, he's got almost a pawn advantage here, with queen h5 being given as the best move. Queen h5. So what does Magnus play here? Very tactical move. If I give you 10 seconds, can you spot it? So 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, Magnus plays rook takes d7. And you might think, where's the mate? What's going on here? I don't get this move. I didn't get this move. I thought, what? It's not to do with bishop e6 or bishop h7, is it? I'll give you a clue. Do you remember Alekhine's early correspondence game where he was exploiting a pesky queen on h5, trying to trap it? So Magnus is obviously following the Evolution of Style series and was inspired by that Alekhine game reminder. Because here, in this variation, if knight takes d7, look at this. This is pretty cool. Check. One move. I hope I'm getting this right. Bishop g6. Where does the queen go? If the queen goes to h6, then knight f7 check will win the queen. Clear enough. And if the queen goes here, guess what, guys? Guess what? What does white play here if I give you 10 seconds? Starting from now. Ouch. Checkmate to the queen. Where is the queen going? All the squares are covered. Ouch. So this is why rook takes d7 is actually possible. It's to do with trapping the queen, it's not to do with mating the king. So king h8 was played by Vassily. Now here there's two technical high precision moves which engines like. Magnus's move is liked, but also there's another move which I saw earlier on previous analysis. Magnus's move is rook e7, and you see this move rook e7, and it's at a certain depth, rook e7, but there's also rook d4. Now rook d4 is also quite interesting actually, because black could go wrong in this rook d4 line, because the idea of rook d4 is sometimes to try and trap the queen. We can't see it that clearly here. I think bishop e3, for example, now means that rook h4 and this crude h7 attack is on. And this does turn into a big advantage to white. Look at this. See how that switched? And I suspect that rook d4, with this idea of bishop e3, from what I saw earlier, might actually be a stronger move than rook e7. So in this position, we've got this idea of rook d4 or rook e7, and rook d4 might be the high precision move available. It's interesting because this is also, I don't know, in one of our other Alekhine games, there was this opportunity for Alexander to do such a rook swinging attack on h7. It's kind of a dangerous idea, because how many other ranks are there for white to exploit in this position? Not this rank, because there's already two pieces. You can't really swing across to h5, so it's virtually the only rank is the fourth rank to try and swing a rook across. Swing a rook across. Okay, so, but anyway, rook e7 was chosen by Magnus. Rook e7, still with advantage. So it's a fascinating game technologically, this game, I would say. When I say technologically, I mean really, really sensitive moves to the position, to the specifics of the position. So here, knight d5, and it gets actually more intense than this. Now, great move tactically, bishop g4. So if queen takes g4, then queen takes h7 is to be avoided. So queen g6. Now knight f7 check is played. Now if rook takes, then you just win the exchange. You just take and then take on f7. So king g8 virtually forced. Now bishop f5 basically forces a queen sacrifice. Otherwise, you know, where is the queen going without getting mated? You know, queen f6 is another mating one, because the knight's actually stopping and is protected, so that would be a mate. So queen sacrifice time at move 21 for Ivanchuk. It's reached that state. He has to sacrifice the queen. There's no other move. Ouch. So he plays queen takes f5. So Magnus plays queen takes f5, but it's not over. More precision is needed here, otherwise black could end up being better in this position. Because look, for all his efforts, we've got potential strategic backfire here. We've got weaknesses on the light squares. We've got this long range bishop going into cutting into that diagonal. We've got an f-file potential pressure. We've got a pin on the knight. Are we losing another piece as white? So this is far from easy. Just because white's won the queen, white's still got to play very precise moves to actually extract an advantage here. In fact, engine evaluation here is only slightly better for white with the move which Magnus plays now. Look at other moves. If Magnus doesn't play knight h6, which has very specific tactical reasons again, say he plays queen b5, black ends up better. Rook takes f7, black's better. Look if we evaluate this position. Let's just evaluate this position. Black's got potential for rook f8, maybe h6 g5 later, f2 pressure, can get this other knight centralized. All the pieces would be coordinating quite well. And white's got a weakened king position. So this is far from the end of the story. So Magnus plays this check, knight h6 check. Another very tactical move. So what's the idea? One of the ideas is actually to open up this diagonal. We've been looking at videos recently with a bishop on that diagonal. White's got the lethal, potentially lethal, dark square bishop if he doesn't get mated himself on the light squares. So we see now, after g takes, that check, and black would be getting in trouble here, I believe, if he plays king h8, because the king is on a dark square on that dangerous diagonal, and I think a move like bishop d2 is very dangerous for bishop c3 check. Let's just verify that. In fact, even more direct, pardon me, pardon me, just bishop e5 check is mating. Oh dear, save embarrassment, check the engine first. Ouch. So check, king h8. So right idea, slightly improved implementation. Just bishop e5 mate. Oh dear. But okay, let's look at king f7. That's the other question here. What happens if king f7? Bishop takes h6. So we've got a major threat of queen g7 now. Now bishop g5. Queen h4. Is black really unable to defend the king here? Say he goes there, bishop f4, and now we get this idea that the diagonal is dangerous. I don't know. It still looks a bit tricky to me, but apparently, you know, white's better. Okay. So Ivanchuk played knight g6, and you know, visually, you know, he's got a lot of material for the queen here. Okay, so bishop takes h6, but the queen and bishop are sort of attacking on the light and dark squares here. Rook f7, so queen c4 won't be with check, but rook d1 just seizing that d file. Rook e8, and now exerting more pressure on the king side with h4, and it's difficult to do something about this actually, this h4. The other knight tries to come to the rescue now, knight c5. There is a resource black has available to kick the queen with bishop c8. That's the thing which Ivanchuk's been banking on here. He's not losing that g6 knight just yet. Bishop c8 will evict the queen. So h5, bishop c8 evicts the queen. Where's the queen going? It takes on c4 now. But now knight e5, and look, visually, again, black's pieces don't look that bad for the queen actually. White has to play very accurately. He plays actually queen h4. Magnus. Now knight c6 is played, which actually might be the key blunder actually, because if we look at the position, I think it was roughly about equal here, just slight advantage to white technically. If he had played oh, he did play knight c6, which is one of the recommended moves, but there's other ideas, knight e6. So after knight c6, the thing is, the advantage goes up after rook d5. That's why I'm thinking, actually, knight c6, for some reason, is a blunder. If knight e6, rook d5, is that still on the cards? Might not be. Rook f5, and it seems to be about equal. So I do wonder about this knight c6, rook d5. Okay. Because now the rook, you know, the invasion point g5 is highlighted, so it's forcing g5 to be defended against, which would be quite a dangerous check. So Ivanchuk plays knight e6, which does parry rook g5s, but now queen c4 hits the knight on c6, and black is getting a little bit under pressure here. He gets both knights protecting each other. But now, unfortunately, queen g4 check, and Ivanchuk is in trouble for a reason I said earlier actually on this dark square diagonal. If he moves his king, now I believe, without putting foot in mouth, I hope, that bishop d2 is strong. Let's just engine verify that. Bishop d2 to go to c3, I think is very strong here. Yes, bishop d2. And it's very, very dangerous diagonal. So if white ends up winning this exchange here, it's also h6, which is exacerbating the situation. So this kind of continuation is starting to get very painful. So actually, he wanted to avoid that, but he just loses a piece, unfortunately. To avoid that, he plays knight g7, and unfortunately, there's a piece in pre here. Queen takes c8, and here, Ivanchuk resigned. Now, this game was a bit like chess meets rocket science, actually. I don't know if... I know it's boring for some people to use an engine, but I don't understand the tactics of this game. Without engine analysis. It's very, very tactical. Even after Magnus wins the queen, with this amazing idea. It's far from over. It was the knight h6 which did a lot of damage to weaken the diagonal, this diagonal later. I remember black's putting pawns on light squares actually, which is no coincidence actually that the dark squares are a bit weaker later. But if we check actually in retrospect what's happening to the dark squares in this game, black's dark squares, they're being slightly weakened, and the king side's being slightly weakened. At the point of winning the queen, here, there's two pawns just around the king now, but this knight h6 check really damages the diagonal. So pardon me again, king h8, the bishop e5 straight away, mating. So knight g6 is putting the knight in an unfortunate spot where h4 might be dangerous for white with the menacing threat of h5. But first, bishop takes h6. Okay. Here actually, you might ask, actually, was bishop c8 possible? I wonder if bishop c8 is actually refutable out of interest with the check or something else. Actually, queen e4 would be a knockout blow, it seems, or a very strong blow. It's hitting the rook. So say the rook just casually moved. What's going on here? Just bishop takes f8. Okay, just winning the exchange. Okay, so that's just time to win the exchange. All right, so let's go back. So bishop takes h7. There's no time for bishop c8 because of queen e4, tempo gaining on the rook on a8. So rook f7, rook d1. So white still carries the threat now of h4, h5, but black still has the possibility of bishop c8. Before he wants to do bishop c8, he wants to make sure the rook is more central, so he plays rook e8. So bishop c8 is better without blocking in his own rook and leaving it liable to any queen e4s. So h4, and now black casually plays knight c5, knowing that h5 can be answered with bishop c8, but he is dropping the c4 pawn. But now he's able to get the knight into the centre again with tempo, this knight on g6. Queen goes to h4, still lurking around the black king with the threat of queen g5 check at some point being potentially dangerous. Knight goes to c6 here, which may have been a key blunder. So rook d5. Black has a weakened king. Now materially, what are we talking about materially here? Let's assume the queen's worth 9, so 12, 17, and we're up against 5, 10, 13, 16, 19. So white's actually technically material down, 17 against 19. So really it depends on the position. In terms of pawns, though, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 2 pawns. So 2 pawn advantage to white. In terms of major pieces, white's losing, but the pawns make up for it a bit. The key thing is black is without dark square bishop. So the dark squares are particularly vulnerable. So rook d5 is a very dangerous maneuver. Okay, so improvements here might have been something like in this position, knight e6, I'm saying, and with the idea of rook f5. So technically, I don't know really what's going on here. Why isn't g4 a move here? Is g4 a move here? Why is this about equal? Why would this be about equal? Is g4 a move? No, knight f3 check, just winning the rook on d5. So black would have tricks basically, but in the game, yeah, maybe it's a shame then. The result it's not really indicative of black's potential here. The result here with rook d5. So knight e6 guarding g5, queen c4, but now this very dangerous queen g4 check. Just exploiting really a vulnerable piece. The knight can't move because of the vulnerable piece. But if the king moved to h8, then it's really the king's safety aspect, which is black's downfall, as we see with bishop d2. It's a killer retreat to get onto the diagonal, which we've seen in some post-mortem analysis videos recently on this channel. This dangerous diagonal at work again. So knight g7, and that's it. Queen takes c8. Very interesting game, very technical. Maybe that's a usable idea, bishop h3. If you really know what you're doing and you know the pitfalls, maybe it's an idea you can put into your own games in this line. From a theoretical point of view, this is of great theoretical interest against the Nimzo-Indian to play bishop h3 here. I think it's fairly unusual. Looks to me like an innovation anyway. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.